Smartphones are proliferating the consumer market, as are tablets. Now, during this discussion, we've been primarily discussing 802.11a, b, g, and n wireless networks that you would see in your home or small office. Now, we're still going to continue that discussion through most of the rest of the course, but it's a good thing to bring up how mobile wireless and mobile security is important in today's world. Now, mobile devices such as cellular phones, smartphones, tablets, and so forth make use of 802.11 networks most of the time now. Most of the devices that come out are capable of connecting to an 802.11 wireless network. However, they also employ other connection means such as 3G, 4G, Bluetooth, RFID, infrared, and so forth that we'll discuss a little bit because they have some particular vulnerabilities as well, in addition to the normal vulnerabilities that these devices would incur when connecting to a regular 802.11 network. So we'll cover some of these things that affect mobile security as well during the next few discussions. First, we'll talk about cell phone or smartphone security. Now, as we said, smartphones have increased in popularity over the past few years, and they're proliferating the consumer market. However, the popularity and the lax security controls built into them have made them a huge target for hackers as well as phishers and so forth. A recent U.S. CERT paper dated 2011 stated that between 2009 and 2010, the vulnerabilities associated with mobile devices and cell phones and smartphones in particular jumped 42%. Now, this was due to various factors, obviously, the proliferation into the market, the lax security controls, joining 802.11 wireless networks, app security, and so forth. So, take that for what it's worth. However, it's worth looking at the mobile security arena to determine how these security vulnerabilities affect our networks. Now, smartphones obviously are subject to a wide variety of vulnerabilities. They're small, they're easy to hide, so they're subject to theft, obviously. Unauthorized data access through various means, through Bluetooth, through wireless networks, but also through hacking the phone itself. They also are subject to things called vishing, which is the same thing as phishing, but it uses voice calls. So it's unsolicited voice calls that might persuade you to go and click on a certain link or to give personal information out during the voice call. So vishing is a vulnerability you have to be careful with in smartphone use. There's also smishing, and smishing is a form of phishing as well, but it's in the form of unsolicited SMS or MMS messages that come to your phone and may ask you to text someone back information or go to a particular website. Again, vishing and smishing are social engineering attacks, and they typically are based upon the old tried and true phishing methods. Now, there are technical vulnerabilities in smartphone software that we could cover, but they're probably too numerous to talk about. And most of it has been fixed over the past few years, but you'll still see some vulnerabilities in apps, for example. There's also vulnerabilities in the signaling technologies that work with smartphones, and configuration issues can cause problems as well that can result in vulnerabilities that can be exploited through attacks. For example, there's Bluetooth attacks that we'll discuss in another session, and these concern bluesnarfing and bluejacking, where unsolicited messages are sent to a smartphone, or even the Bluetooth connection on a smartphone can be hijacked and data can be accessed on the smartphone and commands can be sent to the device itself. We also have the typical 802.11 wireless network attacks, as well as infrared vulnerabilities. And infrared vulnerabilities require line of sight, and there's not a lot of them out there, but they may involve denial of service types of things. Some of the attacks on wireless technologies that we've discussed can come from rogue apps on a smartphone that connects to your wireless network. Obviously, that would be a definite vulnerability. Joining unknown Wi-Fi networks with your smartphone might not be a wise decision, since those Wi-Fi networks might not be secure and the data you send over them might be intercepted. You also might have a problem with a smartphone of joining Wi-Fi networks that have weak encryption or authentication controls, because even though the network itself might not be malicious users might take advantage of that, and the data you send from your smartphone to the wireless network could be intercepted. We also have to be careful of ad hoc connections with wireless devices, particularly mobile devices. Everybody wants to send a picture or some kind of a file between cell phones, and that's great, but these ad hoc connections can put your phone at risk. Now, there are also technologies that deal with cellular, particularly 3G and 4G, that have some vulnerabilities that we've seen over the years. There are some things called cross-network services or cross-infrastructure cyber attacks that can be implemented on a cellular network or a cellular device. Another vulnerability is the ability to track users and devices that use 3G networks. And this is based upon the protocol logic that 3G is actually based upon. It's really not a vulnerability with the device or the phone or the software. It's the technology itself that enables 3G users to be tracked. There are also session key vulnerabilities that happen when there is device-to-network authentication and the exchange of session keys to protect data. That process itself can be flawed, and this can result in the key being compromised and the data being decrypted by an unauthorized user. Another set of vulnerabilities involve things like jamming. And when we're talking about jamming, we're talking about sending signals out that would jam a typical transmission from a phone to a cell tower, for example. So you might lose your connection or not be able to make a connection. There's also a problem out there with spoofing. And spoofing can come from fake 3G transmitters that can be bought for under $1,000. And your phone has a natural tendency to lock on the strongest signal. And that could be the nearest cell tower. But these fake 3G transmitters can fool your phone into thinking that they are a cell tower, and the phone will lock on them, and that would enable an attacker to perform man-in-the-middle attacks, interception, spoofing, and so forth. They would also be able to send your phone data as well that you might not want. So those are some of the vulnerabilities that are associated with smartphones and cellular technologies.